Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be discussing the fight announcements that Dana just released for UFC 321 and 322. They're for the Abu Dhabi card and the MSG card later on in the year. I'm going to be doing like an early predictions for all these fights and talking about my overall thoughts on the fight. Starting with the first fight that was released, probably the biggest fight that was released. It's JDM versus Islam. Finally got released. We all knew that this fight was going to be happening, and it was just sort of on to timing, and we kind of knew that it was going to be MSG as well. But this took the UFC way too long to announce. We all knew that this was going down, but it's a great fight. I'm not going to complain about it, and I'm going to be leaning JDM's way as of so far. I'm going to rewatch a lot of his fights, but that will probably lead me to picking Islam. But I just think that there's something in this guy. It's not that he's Australian, shut up, but he's a really good fighter. He's very skilled. He's shown a lot of improvements in his ground game, but the question is it going to be enough to come up against the specialist ground game of Islam Makhachev? And I think it will be, but time will tell. I'll make an actual prediction for it later on, but this is a great fight. But for a Madison Square Garden main event, this is the perfect fight to have on there. I'm very hyped for this, but it's just a little bit less hype than if the UFC announced this like months ago. But it's one of those matchups where you're looking at the pinnacle of skill in the UFC, and it's going to be a very close fight between the two of them. I just hope that JDM gets it done for Volk in this one. But moving on to the co-main event of the same card, we've got Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili. This is another very good fight. I would have preferred this to be on the T-Mobile event card in December and have like Pantoja versus Joshua Van as the co-main, but this is still one of the biggest WMMA fights of all time. It'll be a great fight between the two of them. It's probably the most skilled WMMA fight of all time, and I think that Weili is going to get this done, even though she's coming up from strawweight. I don't think that that's going to play into it as much. I don't think that the weight disparity between the two of them is going to be massive. And I think that she's going to be more skilled than Valentina Shevchenko. We've seen that Zhang Weili's last performances have been getting better and better every single time. Whereas Valentina Shevchenko hasn't looked as good as she used to in her last few performances. So I think that Zhang Weili is going to be able to get this one done. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Edwards versus Prates. This is a very, very exciting fight, and I'm happy that Leon Edwards actually took the fight. I'm sick of watching him fight only grapplers. I don't even know if he's good at striking anymore. That's the thing. Because a lot of these guys that become really good counter grapplers, like your Jamal Hills, eventually they come up against a striker and then they just get cleaned up because they're fighting a striker that hasn't fought 7 grapplers in a row. But I do think that this is going to be a lot closer of a fight than people think. I think Edwards is going to be shooting takedowns in the fight. I can see the boxing giving Leon Edwards a lot of problems from Carlos Prates. I do think Carlos Prates is going to win this one by decision, but it's a very tricky prediction, as Leon Edwards hasn't fought a striker since 2021 when he fought Nate Diaz. And the thing is that you can't really judge how good Leon is at striking when he's coming up against wrestlers and he's thinking about their takedowns constantly. And the last striker he fought was like a BJJ grappler in Nate Diaz, who's like a cardio kickboxer. He doesn't start loading in until the 5th round. But this is such a difficult fight for me to predict. I would favor Edwards in a 5-rounder, but Prates in 5 rounds doesn't usually pace amazingly. But in 3 rounds, I think that Prates is going to be able to out-activity Leon Edwards and be able to get it done by decision. People are talking about Edwards like he's going to lose this one as a foregone conclusion and that his career's over. But he's never been KO'd in his career, and we've seen that Prates had troubles with a guy like Ian Gary who moves really efficiently. So it's an actual really interesting matchup between the two of them. And now that Prates has had that Ian Gary fight, he knows that his footwork needed a little bit of work after that. And I think he will probably make the necessary adjustments in this fight against Leon Edwards. Moving on to the co-main of UFC 321, Werner Jandiroba versus Mackenzie Dern. This, however, isn't what I was really expecting for a Saudi Arabia co-main event for a pay-per-view, because I've heard that they don't really love to host women's fights there, so it's odd that they would put a co-main event for that one. But this is a good fight all in all. It does scream Fight Night main event to me, not like a pay-per-view event, even with the belt, just because neither of these two were former champions, neither of these two are current champions. It's a vacant strawweight belt, and these two are like grapplers through and through. You're not going to see a brutal finish in this one. And although the grappling is going to be a treat to watch, there's very low chance of an impressive finish that either from either one, and it's sort of just going to drag away the hype from the from the event, especially with Tom Aspinall as the main event of the card. I think it really does dampen it, because in my opinion, there's sort of two non-fights in the main card of that, because whoever wins out of Dern and Jandiroba in this one, they're not going to really do any damage with against each other, and it's going to be sort of like a 25-minute jiu-jitsu match. And then straight after we'll see Aspinall flatline Cyril Gane after 1 minute. And we'll be leaving the event just wanting more fights. It's one of those events where you leave it being like, oh damn, I wish we got literally one more fight out of this. Or I wish that fight went 2 minutes longer. The rest of the card looks really good, but it's a bit less exciting as it goes up the card. Moving on to the last fight I was going to break down, which is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Bautista. We all did know that this one was going to be happening. I'm pretty annoyed, though, that it's not over 5 rounds. And honestly, if Umar wins, I don't want him to fight Merab, since this isn't 5 rounds. I want to be shown the adjustments that he needs to make to fight Merab again and actually win. He needs to show that he's made improvements on what lost him the fight against Merab. And I'm actually kind of annoyed that this isn't 5 rounds, because I could see Umar outdoing Bautista for the first 2 rounds and then losing the third as he gets tired and then getting given a title shot against Merab just to be out-cardioed for the last 3 rounds. When people lose title fights, I want them to show improvements in the areas that they lost before they just jump straight back into another title fight. And that's exactly what they're doing with this one. I can so see Umar out-grappling Mario for the first 2 rounds, and then in the 3rd round, Mario's coming back with some activity, and everyone's like, oh, look, Mario may come back with this one, but if it was 5 rounds, Mario gets it done. I don't want that sort of narrative coming into a fight with the guy with the best cardio in the history of the UFC. I need to see the issue at hand be solved, which is Umar's cardio, which we won't see solved in the 3-round fight. It's like DDP knocking out RDR and Baralho in 2 separate fights from now, without either fight touching the mat or having any grappling, and then DDP being like, I think I've shown all the skills to beat and rematch Hamzat. It's like, no, dude, you got 50-44 on the ground. You spend 21 minutes being controlled. We need to see that get addressed. We can't see Umar come into a striking-only matchup for 3 rounds and then be like waltzing back into a Merab fight. Like, it just makes no sense. It's like O'Malley knocking out Sandhagen and Yudong, and then the UFC being like, all right, let's give you a title shot against Merab now. It's like, no, we need to see O'Malley get wrestled by someone for 5 rounds before I want to even see him come against Merab. If Merab retired, then it would make a little bit more sense to see this fight over 3 rounds, because we're not going to see Umar get out cardioed by anyone else but Merab. He's got good cardio, but Merab's just better. I want to see it. I want to see that issue fixed. Like, I don't need to see someone coming into a title shot with the exact same issues. It's like O'Malley coming back into the title shot against Merab. It makes no sense, but it's an alright fight card. The fight card's looking alright. It's got Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane as the main event. Werner Jandiroba versus Mackenzie Dern co-main event. Feature fight will probably be Volkov versus Almeida. 4th fight up will be like Umar versus Bautista. And then the opener of the main card will be like Rakic versus Mirzakhanov. And all in all, they're pretty good fights, but it does get less exciting as the card goes along, because the fight card it'll be Rakic versus Mirzakhanov, probably 1st round finish from either guy, probably Mirzakhanov though. 2nd fight along will be Volkov versus Almeida. Almeida probably submits in the first 2 rounds. And then we got Umar versus Bautista. It's going to be a really high level, probably decision fight. Very active on the feet, very fun fight. They're both going to do a lot of damage. They're both going to go for takedowns. It'll be just an all-around MMA beauty masterclass from both guys. And then the co-main event, it'll be like a 25-minute jiu-jitsu match, moving on to a 1-minute KO in the main event. Like, it does teeter off a little bit. I would have liked a 5-round co-main of Paddy versus Arman for the Etihad Arena event, but we don't get it. We don't get everything that we want. We at least got some good fight announcements for UFC 322, so I'm not going to complain too much. But Let me know what you think of these fights. Who's going to win out of JDM and Islam? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.